Let's do that.
Let's your other questions on the
Talk fast enough.
from the corner.
Yes, I'm Peter Monroe. Yes, the question you left dangling for me was the 800 or 900 vacant lots in the city. And I'm wondering what the current ownership of those are and what potential access a community-based organization might have to putting easements on those properties and then, making them available for rebuying with the proviso that they had to have community orchards or they had to have some community food production aspect to them.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
This is what they're thinking about in Flint, Michigan. And
Really?
Detroit,
Right.
actually, is these large community farms where there are a lot, very few people living in existing structures.
Question in the back.
Yeah, I really like the fact that you went back to what was traditionally grown as a food supply and that was native to the area. I'm wondering if you've looked into other crops that could be grown, because first of all, it's something that could be sold as a, quote, food that other people would think was really cool because it was something that was native. It would be a crop that they could perhaps sell and yet use themselves, and it's so low water. I mean, there are crops that are in Africa and New Mexico, etc., that are traditionally very low water, similar types of soils, and it might be interesting to look at those.
Yeah, we know of dozens of crops, especially that the Tohono O'odham used to, or still do, cultivate and eat. But we don't have time to profile all of them.
But I think
today.
that's a wonderful way of looking at it, because that whole specialty crop thing is so big in foreign products now. Everybody wants to return to the native grains, etc., because they're better for us. And I would think that would be terrific.
There's another aspect of that hasn't been touched on by anybody today, and that is that there's a lot of indigenous wildlife out there that is going to be directly competing for whatever people are trying to grow. Some of that has very real values to humans for a protein source, and not everybody in Aho is a vegan. And I think there are some real opportunities for raising different types of animals in captivity on small lots that probably ought to be looked into, whether they're rabbits or something else. But another issue that was left dangling, I think, was the fact that the mining company has been discharging tremendous quantities of water, which has known contaminants, particularly heavy metals, and nobody seems to be looking at what the effects are on the contaminants or heavy metals in the aquifer. And I wonder if, in fact, you made reference to arsenic being found in some of the mining operation and as part of the contaminants problem. I suspect there are other metals and other contaminants as well. Did you address some of them? Did you, or?
I just got too flustered to say that it's actually naturally occurring arsenic in the water, and so the utility company does filter that out, but there is no known contamination of the water supply from the mine operation at this point.
Although the Superfund site is associated with the way they used to process copper, so there's lots of chemicals involved with that.
And then the residential wells probably, obviously, are not having their water filtered. And I don't know, we don't have figures on how many people are relying on those exclusively.
In addition to looking at the heritage and native species, which I think is great, I like that you all looked at the traditional farming and irrigation methods like the Akin and looking at Brad Lancaster's work. And my question is, in what other sort of like historical precedents through trial and error have, because I know that a lot of like the Pueblo people are sedentary, or were sedentary, so they were farming, and so what other traditional methods could you possibly apply and glean from that? And if you've looked at other case studies or precedents in the desert Southwest that you can borrow from, and I know for instance, Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is high desert, it's really dry there, they've started a food policy council and are doing all sorts of huge projects with a similar landscape, a higher elevation though, but just curious if you can borrow from communities that are already pushing that edge further and also looking to historical precedents.
Absolutely. Tucson's doing a lot from the aspect of stormwater management and food, but I wasn't there. I was, oh yeah, there's aquaponics going on there too, where they have a closed loop system. They're using a little bit of wastewater to top it off every once in a while. But you can speak more about Cowlick and the other farms visited.
Well, that there are people who are trying to revive traditional agricultural in the nation, but I think we're, open to finding whatever. I feel like the polyculture thing's another whole element, like we were talking about the oases where people used to live in, grow crops and provide wildlife habitat. And when people were forcibly removed from their homeland, the native fish population started to decline. All these environmental consequences resulted from that. So clearly, there's potential in that area. I think we're open to whatever we can find.
There was that one. Wasn't there one block of land that had a well on it?
Mm-hmm.
I wondered if that might have the potential to become one of these oases with multiple uses.
We were also thinking about this wastewater that's currently going into the mine tailings. If it's diverted somewhere else, could that create a productive ecosystem that also supported the cactus Phrygnus owl and the other endangered species there?
So no one studied leachate out of the tailings field with sewage going in there? That's like...
well, one of the reasons that they are going to, it's very hard to get good information, honestly. I've really tried to look into this. Basically, there is some implied concerns about leachate from sewage coming through the tailings, but I couldn't get any specific information. It is treated with, I think, sanitized before it's put up there.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the wastewater so much as the contaminants that are in the tailings that the wastewater would then carry into the aquifer.
Yeah.
And,
my understanding is that it's kind of, they represent it as if it's somewhat inert, but I don't actually know that. So.
This discussion, and also the mention earlier that the wells on the map are still owned by the mining company, raises the question of the participation of the mining company in the town. Are they just passive? They own land, or could this company or these companies perhaps be in some way encouraged to be a player in the solution of these problems, regional problems?
I think that's what we're hoping, actually, is a possibility.
The mine still owns the land.
presence?
They owned a lot of the infrastructure in town, including the wells. The mine could reopen at any time. It's been closed since, when, 85?
85.
It's been closed since 85, but if the price of copper rises enough, they could potentially reopen the mine.
There were plans to reopen it in 2008 before the market crashed, and then they backed off.
But Susanna, you were looking into the mining company's public policy?
That's
Is it
Yeah, well, their annual report, they sound like they're very interested in community development projects, and this falls right under their idea of what would, it's good for their PR. So. Maybe.
Thank you.